how do you think this fares around the world? I mean, is it possible? See, I don't know the schedule. Will next year, will we have 3 in the U.S.? Will there be one in Miami, Austin, and Vegas? So will that be the most on any continent?
Well, I think Europe has the lion's share of races still. But yeah, it's 3 in the United States is certainly a lot, considering last year for the past decade there's only been 1, and it's been the race in Austin. And so I think Formula One is trying to capitalize on this American interest in the sport being the highest it's ever been, and the spectacle of American sports, and having this race in Miami and then the race in Las Vegas, and setting them up to be like Super Bowl type spectacle events where there's luxury boxes and they're selling, experiences to fans. And it's probably just going to be a different crowd than what you get in Austin, where people are going to see the race and sit in the grandstand or sit on the hill. Like, people are, going and eating like festival food, corn dogs and hot dogs and hamburgers and all that. People aren't there looking for, caviar hot dogs or whatever they were selling at Miami. It was something like that. But yeah, and I think personally, like, it's great to have a mixture of everything as a sports fan. Like, it's good to have your street races and your Vegas races that are going to be at night, lights on. It's going to be a spectacle. But then I think it's also good to have races where the focus is on the actual drivers and the driving, which is what it was this weekend. We saw some incredible performances by Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Lando Norris. It was just a really fun race, I thought. And so I know that there are the older fans of the sport, fans that have been fans of F1 for longer, not older people. I should clarify.
Thank you.
Yeah, not you, Mike, but
thank you for all the older people out there.
People who have been fans of the sport for a while, I can probably see why they would be skeptical of adding a second and third race in the United States, and Formula One cashing in on that. But I think as long as you keep Austin on the schedule and you make, a little bit of improvements here or there to Miami and Vegas to make sure that they're actual fun races too, I think it's great. And then, of course, you're going to have people across the pond complaining about the time of the race, Mike. I heard some of the British podcasts I listened to were talking about how late they had to stay up to watch it, which is funny because, in the States we have to get up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. usually to watch the races that are in France or the UK or Monaco. So I thought that was kind of funny and probably another reason why people complain. But overall, I think the Circuit of the Americas it's a great sports venue.
So what did you do there? I know you had some responsibilities there. I saw you around with a microphone walking around, so I know you were deeply involved in the weekend.
Yeah, I was actually there shooting like a promo commercial for Google Chrome and McLaren. So Google Chrome sponsors McLaren's car. They have Google Chrome, logo on the wheels and all that. So they asked me if I would come to Austin and host a pit stop trivia game with fans and ask fans to answer trivia questions. They had like 3 seconds to do it. And so I was doing that for the 2 days that I was there. And then I went to the race afterwards, like when we were wrapped. So I was pretty busy, had to get up early, like had to, interact with a lot of people that were fun and excited and crazy and super into the races. But overall, I thought it was a really great crowd and a great atmosphere. And my only complaint, Mike, is that I had to go on top of there's this like observation tower at the Circuit of the Americas, and I had to go to the top of it on the second day, and it was so windy. Oh my God, never again.
Didn't dig that, huh?
I'm not afraid of heights. I am not afraid of heights. Don't care about heights. Don't think about heights. I used to live on, the 30th floor of an apartment building for a couple of years in New York, but I went up there and the wind was like whipping my hair around, and I was like, nope, I'm going back down. I'll take the stairs.
As far as venue, though, we've already, in talking about F1, you and I, and again, me being kind of a newbie to this, noticing like the racing, and you want to see good competitive races, and there's a couple of tracks, Monaco being one of them. It's never going to get moved from Monaco, but and others where you don't have the passing ability, and it just doesn't seem as competitive. It seems like Austin was. It seems like you had the ability to pass, whether it be the turns or the back straightaway, I know where Red Bull really kind of went after it in this one. So from a racing venue, from the track, it seems like it shows good competitiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like this track was just plopped down in the middle of, I guess, like an open field, and it was built for racing, whereas the Miami circuit is built around the Hard Rock Stadium. So there was a lot less freedom to build it a certain way. And so they had, and initially I think they were actually going to build the Miami circuit in downtown Miami. So it was going to be on actual, streets.
Right.
And they wanted to race across the bridge to Biscayne Bay or something like that, which is, I think would have been really cool, but there's a ton of logistical issues there. So it didn't work out, and it ended up being at the Hard Rock. And then, the Las Vegas race is going to be on the Strip, Mike. So it's going to be on the it's going to look incredible. But again, they're not going to be able to change too much of what the existing infrastructure is to make it a really competitive race. And you mentioned Monaco, which is interesting because Monaco actually, it remains to be seen if it will be on the calendar in 2 or 3 years. I think there are a lot of fans that don't care for it. The
players will lose the drivers will lose their minds. They love going there, don't they?
Well, most of them live there, so it's like a home race for a few of them. But I think there's a lot of fans who wouldn't be too upset to see Monaco taken off the calendar. So that remains to be seen. I think there's, again, like Formula One has to strike a balance. Next year is going to be a crazy season because it's the most races they've ever raced in a calendar year, and that puts a lot of strain on budgets, on people that have to travel from week to week, on the entire infrastructure of Formula One. So we'll see what happens 5 years from now if there are still 3 races in the U.S. I think the Miami race signed a 10-year contract. I'm not sure. I can't remember what Austin and Vegas' statuses are, but I really hope Austin stays on the calendar for a while, because that really felt the most like a race in a sporting event to me, versus Miami, which felt like a fun party.
So so again, we're going to go on the track, but do you think in the long run here, again, this is starting to become popular in the U.S. a lot, like me, took in the Drive to Survive on Netflix to kind of know the characters a little bit. And now the races that are going on in the U.S., as you mentioned, 3 going on next year, will we Americanize this thing, or will this thing make it okay in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think there's already there was an announcement this weekend that there will be an American driver on the grid next year racing for Williams, Logan Sargent, who races in F2. He's from Fort Lauderdale, so not too far from the Miami Grand Prix. As long as he gets his super license points at the end of this year, he'll be eligible and he'll be racing on a team next year. There's been interest by certain Americans like Mario Andretti to buy a team or buy into a team or start a new team. And so there's all of those opportunities. And then, of course, there's like all the, American fans now that are infiltrating the sport, podcasting about it and talking about it and bringing it to, our more mainstream media sources like, me on this show and the Le Batard show. So ESPN actually just announced this weekend that they're extending their broadcast rights with Sky and F1 for 5 more years, commercial free. So I don't know exactly what this looks like in 5 years, because we all have such short attention spans. And if the racing drops off or we see a downturn in interest, like maybe it will level off. But I do think that there's enough seeds planted and enough people interested that as long as they keep having weekends like, last weekend in Austin, people are going to want to buy tickets and go.
And hopefully, do you think I guess in this case, ESPN will just keep it with Sky and not try and bring in their own announcers?
I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of it too much, Mike, but I do know what a freaking process it is to make that show. There was a story about it recently, I think in the New York Times, about what goes into making that show. And I can't imagine. I couldn't even film a car going by on my iPhone. Like, I couldn't even track a car with my iPhone camera. And these massive, these cameramen on these massive cameras are tracking them go around turns at like 180 miles per hour. Like, I think Sky does a great job with it. So I'm certainly excited that they're going to be doing it. There was also, Mike, I don't know if you saw the drama on the Pitt in the grid walk this weekend with Martin Brundle and Brad Pitt, but apparently Brad Pitt kind of blew him off a little bit when Martin Brundle was trying to get an interview with Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt's making a Formula One movie right now. That's another thing that the Americans are getting invested in. There's a lot of new media coming out about Formula One movies and documentaries,
Right.
and Lewis Hamilton's got some Apple Plus documentary coming out. So that ticked off a lot of Formula One fans who were like, hey, Brad Pitt, if you're going to make a movie about our sport that you don't know anything about, maybe you should be nice to our legendary little Martin Brundle interviewer guy when he's trying to ask you questions at the race.
Yeah, that sounds like something we would do. You know,
Yep.
I mean, we know all there is to know. We don't need to talk to you little people involved. I mean, my God, you're right. I mean, just do the thing. You know, I mean, if you're going to try and be involved in F1, that is somewhat amazing.